Ethan's boots sank slightly into the soft, damp earth of Zorathia's jungle. The air was thick with humidity, and the scent of alien plants filled his lungs. Every leaf seemed to shimmer with a strange light, and every sound, the rustling of foliage, distant calls, and the occasional snapping of a twig, made him alert. He had trained for exploration and danger, but Zorathia was unlike any planet he had ever visited. Known for its dangerous wildlife, it was a place most visitors avoided. He paused for a moment, listening carefully. A low growl resonated through the thick trees, vibrating in the ground beneath his feet. Ethan's gaze shifted slowly, scanning the shadows. From the foliage ahead, a massive Garath emerged, towering and covered in thick, scaled skin. Its claws dug into the earth, and its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. It was said that a single strike from its tail could crush a small vehicle, and its bite had ended the lives of several explorers in recent years. Most humans would have run, screamed, or hidden behind some cover, but Ethan remained calm. He breathed steadily, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He had read about Garaths, studied their behaviors, and understood that rushing or panicking would provoke an attack. From behind a large tree nearby, a young alien girl peeked. Mira had been sent to monitor the borders of her village, keeping track of the jungle's creatures. She had seen many humans before, but none had ever dared to approach a Garath so closely. Her wide eyes reflected a mix of fear and disbelief. She whispered to herself, "No one survives that. No one touches it and walks away." Ethan took another careful step, holding his hands slightly raised to show he meant no harm. His calmness contrasted sharply with the tension radiating from the Garath. The creature stopped moving, its massive head tilting slightly as it studied him. Every muscle in its body was coiled, ready to strike if it felt threatened, but it did not attack. Ethan moved slowly, making his presence known without appearing threatening. Myra's heart pounded in her chest. She had grown up hearing stories of the Garath, tales of explorers who never returned. And yet, this human, he walked as if nothing could harm him. She pressed herself closer to the tree, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The Garath had always been a symbol of danger, yet here it stood, cautiously observing a human who approached with nothing but calm and careful attention. Ethan crouched slightly, lowering his body to show he was not a threat. He remembered his training. Animals and intelligent creatures often respond better to those who display patience and respect rather than aggression. He watched the Garatha's eyes, noting the flickers of awareness, the subtle movements of its tail, and the way its claws gripped the soil. He could see the creature assessing him as much as he was assessing it. Myra's friends who had been hiding nearby, whispered in astonishment. "Is he trying to tame it?" one asked, disbelief in her voice. "No human could do that," said another. "It would attack immediately. We've seen it destroy everything in its path." But Ethan was not trying to tame it. He knew better than to underestimate the Garatha's intelligence and strength. His goal was understanding, observation, and connection. Slowly, he extended one hand toward the creature, fingers open, showing he meant no harm. The Garath tilted its massive head, sniffing the air near his hand. Myra's eyes widened even further. The Garatha's growl was low, rumbling from deep within its chest, but it did not lunge. It moved slightly closer, testing the human's intentions. Ethan remained perfectly still, allowing the creature to set the pace. He could feel Myra's gaze burning into him from behind the tree, filled with awe and disbelief. For a long moment, neither human nor Garath moved. Then Ethan slowly knelt, keeping his movements smooth and deliberate. He spoke softly, using calm tones that carried through the humid jungle air. He did not shout, he did not make sudden movements. He only conveyed that he was not a threat. The Garatha's ears twitched, and it leaned slightly forward, cautiously studying this human unlike any it had seen before. Mira stepped closer, unable to tear her eyes away. He's not afraid," she whispered to herself. She had never seen courage like this, not in humans, not in anyone. Even the bravest hunters in her village had avoided the Garath entirely. They spoke of it with fear, built barriers around their homes, and told children stories meant to scare them away from the jungle. But this human, he approached with respect and calm, and the beast allowed it. Ethan's eyes met the Garatha's. He noticed the slight droop of its jaw, the twitch of its tail, and the subtle shift in weight that indicated it was curious, not hostile. Carefully, he placed a hand on the ground near the creature, letting it sniff and understand his presence. Slowly, the Garath stepped closer, its massive body moving with surprising grace for something so large. Myra's mouth fell open slightly. She could not believe what she was witnessing. Minutes passed, each moment stretching longer as human and beast studied one another. Ethan's patience never wavered. He had been trained for extreme situations, but this was more than training. It was instinct, intelligence, and courage combined. The Garath, sensing no danger, remained calm. Myra's amazement grew with each passing second. Humans could endure challenges she could hardly imagine. Ethan shifted slightly, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He glanced back at Mira, giving her a small, reassuring smile. The message was clear. The Garath was not an enemy, and patience, calmness, and respect could prevent danger. Myra's heart raced. She realized that this human was showing a courage that went beyond fearlessness. It was understanding, observation, and control of the mind. The Garath lowered its head slightly, sniffing Ethan's hand. Mira gasped softly. The beast, feared by all her people, was allowing contact. Ethan slowly reached out, touching the creature's snout lightly, careful not to startle it. The massive eyes of the Garath blinked, and it remained still. Myra's eyes sparkled with awe. Humans, she realized, could endure situations and connect with beings that no other species could. Ethan remained kneeling, watching the creature carefully. He did not seek dominance, he did not seek reward. He only sought understanding and connection. The Garath's breathing slowed, and it stepped back slightly, relaxed yet alert. Myra's friends had stopped whispering, they were too stunned to speak. He's not afraid at all, Mira finally said aloud. No one survives that. Not even the hunters could face it without running. Ethan looked at her and nodded slightly. Courage doesn't mean you aren't afraid, he said softly. It means you stay calm and think clearly even when you are. Mira felt a new sense of respect for humans, realizing they possessed qualities beyond strength or size. Intelligence, patience, and courage could allow them to survive, and even connect with the deadliest creatures on a planet. The Garath turned its massive head, sniffed the air one last time, and then slowly walked back a few steps, as if testing the human's intentions once more. Ethan remained still, giving the beast space and showing respect. Myra's jaw dropped. She could not believe it. This human had faced her planet's most dangerous creature and had not only survived but also made the creature cautious, curious, and calm. For the first time, Mira began to understand that humans were extraordinary. They could endure extreme danger, act with intelligence, and build trust in ways that other species could not. She realized that the stories she had been told about humans being fragile or weak were wrong. Humans could face fear, think clearly, and succeed where others would fail. Ethan finally stood slowly, keeping his movements smooth and calm. The Garath remained still, observing him but showing no aggression. Mira and her friends stepped out from the shadows, clapping quietly, their voices filled with awe and respect. You actually did it, Mira said softly. You faced it and it didn't attack you. How did you survive? Ethan smiled slightly, wiping a bit of sweat from his brow. Patience, observation, and calm thinking, he said. You respect the creature, understand it, and move carefully. That's all it takes. Mira stared at him, realizing that humans were not ordinary. They could survive extreme danger, act with intelligence, and demonstrate courage in ways no other species could. And she knew that this encounter would be remembered forever. The Garath, sensing no threat, turned and slowly disappeared back into the dense jungle, leaving Ethan and Mira alone. Myra's eyes were wide with wonder. She had seen humans do things she never thought possible. Humans endured, adapted, and acted with courage, and that made all the difference. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm accomplishment. He had survived the encounter, but more importantly, he had demonstrated something else. Humans could face fear, think clearly, and act wisely. Mira watched him, silent but full of admiration. In that moment, both human and alien realized that a single act of courage could change perceptions, build trust, and inspire awe. Ethan had not only faced the deadliest beast on the planet, but he had also shown the aliens a truth they would never forget. Humans endure, and they can do extraordinary things. Ethan crouched low on the jungle floor, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. The Garath, massive and imposing, stood only a few meters away, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He had studied the creature's behavior during his research, but seeing it in person was far different from reading reports or watching holovids. Its muscles rippled under thick, armored skin, and every movement, even the slightest twitch of its tail or ear, carried intent. This was no ordinary animal, it was intelligent, aware, and capable of extreme danger. He remained still, breathing evenly. The jungle around them was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves as smaller creatures scuttled about. He noted the way the Garath's claws sank into the soft earth, the careful positioning of its massive body, and the way its nostrils flared as it sniffed the air. Every detail mattered. Ethan knew that a single misstep could trigger an attack, but he also knew that patience and observation were his greatest tools. From behind a thick tree trunk, Mira watched in astonishment. She had grown up learning to fear the Garath, hearing stories of its deadly tail strikes and crushing jaws. And yet, here was a human who didn't flinch, didn't panic, and didn't attempt to run. Instead, he studied the creature, moved slowly, and seemed to understand something about it that she could not. She whispered to her friends hiding nearby, Is he really doing this? Humans are either foolish or unbelievably brave. Ethan reached into his pack and pulled out a small piece of dried meat, one of the rations he had carried for emergencies. He held it in his open palm and spoke softly, letting the creature hear the gentle tones of his voice. He had learned that animals, even dangerous ones, respond better to calm communication rather than loud noises or sudden movements. Slowly, he extended his hand toward the Garath, keeping his posture non-threatening. The Garath's massive head tilted slightly, sniffing the air. Its eyes focused on Ethan's hand and the food. The growl it had emitted earlier softened into a low rumble, almost investigative rather than aggressive. Ethan stayed perfectly still, letting the creature decide whether it trusted him enough to approach. Myra's eyes widened. No one in her village had ever dared feed a Garath, and few had even survived an encounter within its territory. The creature stepped forward cautiously, each movement calculated. Its claws left deep impressions in the jungle floor, yet it moved with surprising grace. Ethan slowly lowered the food closer, careful not to appear threatening. The Garath sniffed the offering, then hesitated. Mira held her breath. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. The human had not only survived this close to the deadliest beast on the planet, but he was also attempting to interact with it. Minutes passed. The Garath's massive eyes studied Ethan, analyzing every movement, every breath, every subtle shift in posture. Ethan remained calm, patient, and deliberate. He noticed the creature's ears flicking, the slight twitch of its tail, and the way it shifted weight from one claw to another. These signs were small but important. They indicated caution, curiosity, and a level of intelligence he had not expected from reports. Mira whispered to her friends again, her voice trembling with excitement. He's not running. He's studying it. He actually wants to understand it. Her friends shook their heads, incredulous. No human could survive this long, one said. And he's trying to feed it? That's madness or brilliance. Ethan gently lowered the food to the ground, a few steps away from the Garath. He did not force it to approach, only provided an option for it to take the food if it trusted him. The massive creature sniffed again, then took a slow step closer, its claws clicking softly against the earth. Myra's heart raced. The Garath, feared for generations, was acting cautiously, not aggressively. Ethan's eyes scanned the Garath's body language. Its tail was still, but the muscles underneath the thick scales twitched occasionally, a sign of alertness. Its nostrils flared, and it shifted its massive head from side to side, gathering information. He understood that building trust would take time. This was not a creature that could be rushed. Patience was essential. The Garath finally inched closer, sniffing the food on the ground. Ethan spoke in low, soft tones, as if explaining his intentions to the creature. It's okay, he said. I mean no harm. Take it if you want. The rumble from the creature's chest was almost approving, a sound Mira had never heard from a Garath. Slowly, it extended its massive jaw and took the food, retreating a few steps immediately after. Ethan remained still, allowing the creature to feel safe. Myra's eyes filled with amazement. No one had ever dared approach it, let alone feed it and live to tell the story. She could see now that humans were different. They faced danger with calm, observation, and courage rather than panic or aggression. Ethan observed the Garath carefully, noting its reactions to the food, to his presence, and to the sounds around them. He realized that it was intelligent, capable of assessing threats and opportunities. Mira gasped quietly. Humans, she thought, could survive situations that even her bravest hunters avoided. They could endure fear, think clearly, and act with courage. He slowly extended his hand once more, letting the creature sniff his fingers. The Garath stepped forward, more confident than before but still cautious. Myra's whisper echoed in her mind, humans were either foolish or brave. She now understood it was courage, the combination of fear management, intelligence, and patience, that allowed Ethan to interact with a creature no one else could. The sun filtered through the dense canopy, casting light on Ethan and the massive beast. He took another small step forward, keeping his movements calm and deliberate. The giraffe did not move away, it seemed to acknowledge his patience and respect. Myra's admiration grew. Humans were not just brave, they were clever, observant, and resilient. Ethan continued to study the giraffe, learning about its senses, reactions, and instincts. Mira watched silently, realizing that humans could survive extreme dangers because of their ability to adapt and think critically. Every movement of the giraffe was a lesson, and Ethan was learning quickly. The beast, once a symbol of death and fear, had become an opportunity to witness the human spirit in action. Minutes stretched into an hour. The giraffe had begun to relax slightly, no longer growling or showing aggression. Ethan's calmness, patience, and respect were teaching it that humans were not a threat. Myra's amazement deepened. She whispered to her friends, "It trusts him. Somehow, it actually trusts him. How is this possible?" Ethan did not rush. He knew that trust could not be forced, only earned. Slowly, the giraffe took more food, moving closer each time. Mira could hardly keep up with the sight. A human, small and fragile compared to the massive beast, was building a connection through understanding, courage, and patience. Ethan remained perfectly still as the giraffe shifted its massive body slightly closer, each step deliberate and measured. Its eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light of Zarathia's jungle, never left him. Mira crouched behind a large tree, her breath caught in her throat. She could hardly believe what she was witnessing. No human had ever survived an encounter with the giraffe before. And now, it was approaching him. Ethan extended his hand slowly, keeping it low and open, a gesture of trust and calm. He spoke softly, his voice steady and gentle. "It's okay. I don't mean any harm. You can come closer." The giraffe's massive head tilted as if it understood, or at least sensed the intention behind his words. Its tail swished slowly, a sign of alertness but not aggression. Mira whispered to herself, unable to contain her awe, No one has ever done this before. He's not just surviving, he's connecting with it." Her friends, hiding a little farther away, exchanged wide-eyed glances. They had been taught to fear the giraffe, to avoid it at all costs. Yet here was a human, calm and composed, making a bond where others saw only danger. The giraffe's enormous claws dug into the soft earth as it inched forward. Each step caused the ground to tremble slightly beneath Ethan's feet, but he did not flinch. Instead, he maintained a steady, relaxed posture, letting the creature approach on its own terms. He had learned from observing predators on other worlds that patience and respect often mattered more than strength. When the giraffe reached a distance where it could sniff his hand, Ethan lowered himself slightly, crouching closer to the ground to appear less threatening. He kept his movements smooth, careful not to startle the massive beast. Mira gasped quietly. The sheer size of the giraffe, its sharp claws, and its powerful tail should have terrified him. Yet he moved with confidence and understanding. The creature leaned in and sniffed Ethan's hand gently. A low, rumbling sound emitted from deep within its chest. Myra's eyes widened in astonishment. She had never heard the giraffe make such a sound except when it was angry or threatened. And yet now it seemed almost calm. The human's courage and patience were influencing it. Ethan spoke softly again, reassuring the beast. "You don't need to be afraid of me. I won't hurt you. I just want to understand you." He let his fingers brush lightly against the creature's snout, careful to move slowly and deliberately. The giraffe did not recoil. It remained still, allowing contact. Myra's heart pounded in her chest. No one had ever done this before, not humans, not aliens, not hunters. And now, here it was, a human showing courage and understanding that surpassed everything she had known. Minutes passed as Ethan remained calm and steady, keeping a soft presence. The giraffe's massive eyes studied him, its powerful body relaxed but ready to move if necessary. Mira whispered to her friends, He's making it trust him. He's really befriending it." Her friends shook their heads in disbelief. This was impossible, or at least it had always been considered so. Ethan's mind worked as he gently stroked the giraffe's snout. He understood that trust took time, that patience and careful observation were more important than displays of strength. He had trained for survival in harsh conditions, but this was beyond physical endurance. This was about intelligence, courage, and empathy, the qualities that made humans remarkable. The giraffe shifted slightly, lowering its massive head to meet Ethan's hand. It sniffed him again, moving closer without aggression. Myra's mouth fell open. She could hardly believe that a human, so small and seemingly fragile compared to this enormous predator, had managed to earn its trust. Humans, she realized, were extraordinary. They could survive and connect in ways no other species could. Ethan kept his voice calm, speaking softly. I understand you're cautious. That's good. You should be. But I promise I mean no harm. The giraffe blinked slowly, and Mira could see the tension in its massive body easing. Each movement was deliberate, a sign of curiosity rather than fear or hostility. From behind a large vine, Myra's friends whispered to each other. It's calm around him, one said. No one could have done this. Another replied, humans, they're not just survivors. They're clever and brave. They think in ways we don't. Ethan's connection with the giraffe grew stronger. He began to understand its subtle signals. The flick of its ears, the movement of its tail, the shifts in weight. Every small detail told him more about its mood, intentions, and reactions. He adjusted his movements accordingly, never rushing, never forcing interaction. Mira watched, realizing that humans had a unique ability to read situations and respond intelligently under pressure. Slowly, the giraffe took another step closer, almost tentatively. Ethan allowed it space, showing respect and patience. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, the air quiet except for the low rumble of the creature and the soft sounds of Ethan's movements. Myra's heart raced as she realized that she was witnessing something historic, a human forming a bond with the deadliest creature on her planet. Ethan moved carefully through the dense undergrowth of Zarathia's jungle, the massive giraffe following him with cautious trust. Every step he took was deliberate, measured, and aware of the uneven terrain, the hanging vines, and the hidden roots that could trip even the most careful traveler. Mira and a small group of aliens had followed at a distance, hidden behind thick trees and vines, observing the scene in silence. What they were witnessing left them speechless. Humans, they realized, were unlike any species they had ever known. While most aliens would have been terrified, hesitant, or reckless when facing a creature as dangerous as the giraffe, Ethan moved with calm confidence. He seemed to anticipate the creature's movements, understanding its instincts and reactions in a way that seemed almost instinctive. Myra's eyes widened as she whispered to her friends, humans, they're not just brave. They think, they adapt, they survive. Ethan noticed small changes in the giraffe's posture, its tail flicking slightly, a shift of weight on its powerful legs, the twitch of its ears. He adjusted his own movements accordingly, taking wide, careful steps, and keeping his voice low and soothing. The giraffe followed, not out of fear or submission but out of growing trust. Mira had never seen such a relationship between a human and a predator of this size and strength. The aliens whispered among themselves, their voices filled with awe. It moves with the creature, not against it, one said. Look at how it responds to every signal, every shift in its posture. Another added, no alien could do this. It's as if he understands it, truly understands it. Ethan paused for a moment near a clearing, where the jungle opened slightly and sunlight streamed through the dense canopy. He knelt and carefully picked up a fallen fruit, offering it to the giraffe. The massive creature sniffed, then gently took the fruit with its jaws, retreating a few steps afterward. Myra's jaw dropped. She had heard of humans surviving dangerous encounters, but she had never imagined someone could not only survive but also communicate and cooperate with a beast of such legendary ferocity. He stood slowly, showing no sudden movements, and waved his hand gently in a calming gesture. The giraffe mirrored his actions in a subtle way, a sign that it was learning to trust him more fully. Mira and her friends exchanged amazed looks. Their assumptions about humans were being challenged in real time. They had thought of humans as fragile, weak, or limited in their abilities. Now they saw clearly that humans could endure, adapt, and perform extraordinary feats. Ethan continued walking carefully, showing clever ways to avoid obstacles. When the giraffe paused near a fallen tree, he gently guided it around instead of forcing it through, demonstrating both intelligence and patience. Myra's admiration grew. Humans, she realized, were not just courageous, they were creative problem solvers. They could survive challenges by thinking clearly, acting decisively, and observing carefully. The giraffe sniffed the air, then shifted its massive body to follow Ethan. Mira noted the subtle interplay between the two, one of guidance, understanding, and trust. Humans, she thought, had a unique way of interacting with dangerous creatures, one that required patience, intelligence, and courage all at once. And Ethan embodied all of those qualities perfectly. At one point, a large branch snapped nearby, startling smaller creatures and sending a flock of alien birds into the air. The giraffe tensed, ready to strike, but Ethan remained calm. He spoke in low, soothing tones, holding his hands steady. Slowly, the giraffe relaxed, understanding that the sudden noise was not a threat. Myra's eyes glimmered with admiration. Humans could maintain composure in moments of danger, and that ability made them extraordinary. The aliens continued to watch, their whispers growing more frequent. "It's incredible," one said. "He's teaching it to trust step by step." Another added, "Humans endure in ways we never expected. They survive not by strength alone, but by intelligence, courage, and understanding." Ethan paused near a small stream, kneeling to examine the water's surface. The Garath waited patiently, showing an almost childlike curiosity. Ethan carefully scooped some water in his hand and offered it to the creature. The Garath drank cautiously, guided by his calm presence. Mira could hardly contain her amazement. Humans could face creatures that would terrify others, and their combination of courage, intelligence, and patience allowed them to survive and thrive in ways that seemed impossible. He looked back at Mira and her friends, giving a small, reassuring smile. The message was clear: humans endure, humans adapt, and humans can succeed where others fail. The aliens felt a mixture of awe and respect. They had believed that their knowledge of dangerous creatures and the jungle's secrets made them superior in such situations. Yet here was a human, demonstrating abilities that challenged everything they thought they knew. The Garath began to move more freely, exploring the clearing while still staying close to Ethan. The trust between them grew stronger with every step. Mira whispered to herself, "He's teaching it patience, he's showing it respect. Humans, they're capable of more than I ever imagined." Ethan continued his careful journey, guiding the Garath through the dense undergrowth. He used subtle gestures, his voice, and slow movements to communicate. The creature responded, adapting its actions to his guidance. Mira's admiration turned into deep respect. Humans were not just survivors. They were leaders, problem solvers, and intelligent beings capable of extraordinary feats even in the face of danger. When they reached a small clearing, Ethan crouched and placed a hand gently on the Garatha's side. The massive creature remained calm, allowing the contact. Mira and the other aliens gasped softly. No alien had ever been allowed such proximity. Humans could achieve trust and cooperation in ways that defied expectations. Ethan spoke softly, "You're learning to trust me. I understand you. We can move safely together." The Garath blinked slowly, a gesture that Mira interpreted as understanding. Humans, she realized, were extraordinary not because of their physical strength alone, but because of their ability to endure fear, act intelligently, and connect with beings others could not. The aliens continued to whisper among themselves. "Look at him," one said. "He moves without fear, without hesitation." Another added, "He thinks, he adapts. That's what makes him different. That's what makes humans remarkable." Ethan stood slowly, giving the Garath space while maintaining calm authority. The massive creature moved alongside him, following his guidance. Mira's admiration turned into wonder. Humans could survive the most dangerous situations, act with patience, and build trust where others could not. She knew that what they were witnessing was more than courage, it was human ingenuity and resilience in action. The jungle seemed to hold its breath as Ethan continued to guide the Garath, demonstrating clever ways to avoid obstacles and keep both of them safe. Mira and the other aliens watched in silence, their assumptions about humans challenged in every moment. Humans were not fragile, reckless, or weak. They were resourceful, intelligent, and capable of extraordinary courage. Finally, Ethan paused near a small waterfall, allowing the Garath to drink and rest. He knelt beside it, maintaining calm and quiet, letting it know he meant no harm. Mira whispered, "They endure, they adapt, they survive. Humans are incredible." Ethan looked around at Mira and her friends, giving them a faint smile. "Humans endure," he said softly. "We observe, we adapt, and we act with understanding. That's how we survive, and sometimes that's how we inspire respect." Mira's eyes glimmered with awe. She had witnessed human courage, intelligence, and patience firsthand. Humans could survive, act with wisdom, and achieve what others considered impossible. Ethan had not only guided the deadliest creature on Zarathia safely through the jungle, but he had also demonstrated the extraordinary qualities of humanity. The Garath, now calm and trusting, followed Ethan quietly. Mira and the other aliens understood that humans were capable of more than they had ever imagined. Courage, intelligence, patience, and resilience allowed humans to achieve feats that challenged assumptions, inspired awe, and earned lasting respect. Ethan smiled faintly. "Trust, patience, and understanding," he said softly, "can accomplish more than fear or aggression ever could. Humans endure, and that's what makes us remarkable." Mira whispered almost reverently, "Humans, they're extraordinary." Ethan emerged from the dense jungle of Zarathia, his movements calm and steady, yet filled with quiet confidence. The massive Garath followed behind him, walking with surprising ease and grace, its immense size no longer a symbol of fear but of a trust that had been earned. The sunlight broke through the thick canopy, casting warm streaks of light across the jungle floor and illuminating the path ahead. Every step he took seemed purposeful, deliberate, a sign of his understanding of both the terrain and the creature that accompanied him. Mira ran ahead through the remaining undergrowth, her small alien feet barely making a sound. She could hardly contain her excitement and amazement. When she finally reached Ethan, she looked up at him with wide eyes and whispered almost reverently, "Humans are braver than we ever imagined." Her voice carried awe, admiration, and a hint of disbelief. She had witnessed something extraordinary, a human not only surviving the deadliest creature on her planet but forming a connection with it. Ethan smiled gently, lowering his eyes to meet hers. "Courage isn't about not feeling fear," he said softly. "It's about staying calm, thinking clearly, and acting wisely even when danger surrounds you." Mira nodded, taking in his words, understanding now that the human capacity to endure went beyond physical strength. It was a combination of intelligence, patience, and compassion that allowed humans to face the impossible and emerge not only unscathed but victorious in a way that inspired trust. The Garath, following behind them, moved carefully yet confidently, showing no signs of aggression. Its massive body swayed with each step, and its glowing eyes tracked Ethan attentively. Mira and the other aliens who had followed from a distance stopped and stared in awe. The sheer sight of a human walking alongside the deadliest predator of their planet, the creature's behavior calm and non-hostile, challenged every preconception they had about humanity. Humans were not fragile, reckless, or limited. They were capable of extraordinary deeds, feats that could inspire admiration across species and worlds. Ethan paused at a clearing near the edge of the jungle and knelt slightly, gesturing for the Garath to stop and rest. The creature obeyed immediately, lowering its massive head in a subtle but clear sign of trust. Mira gasped softly, her eyes following every movement. She had grown up learning that the Garath was untamable, uncontrollable, and deadly. Yet here it was, following the guidance of a human, calm and patient, and responding not with aggression but with cautious cooperation. He turned to Mira and her friends and said, "Every creature, no matter how dangerous, has patterns. They respond to patience, respect, and understanding. If you remain calm and observant, even the deadliest being can be approached safely." Mira's admiration deepened. Humans were resilient in a way that transcended physical bravery. Their endurance came from mental focus, empathy, and the ability to act thoughtfully in extreme situations. The other aliens whispered among themselves. "He's showing us that humans think differently," one said quietly. "Not just fast or strong, they understand, adapt, and inspire trust." Another nodded. "We always feared the Garath, but he has done what no one else could. This is more than bravery, it's intelligence and patience combined." Ethan stood slowly, giving the Garath ample space, and gestured for it to continue following him. The massive creature obeyed, walking beside him rather than behind, its demeanor calm. Mira ran alongside Ethan, keeping pace while her eyes never left him or the Garath. She could feel the sense of accomplishment radiating from him, the quiet confidence that only comes from someone who understands danger, respect, and the power of trust. As they reached the outskirts of the jungle, where the dense trees gave way to open terrain, Ethan stopped and looked around. The Garath paused as well, sniffing the air, and then returned its gaze to him. Mira whispered, "It trusts you, completely. No one else has ever done this." Ethan nodded, understanding the significance of this moment. Humans had the ability to endure, connect, and influence in ways that others could not. Courage alone was not enough. It was combined with understanding, patience, and careful action. Ethan knelt again and extended a hand toward the Garath. The creature gently nudged it with its massive snout, a clear gesture of acceptance. Mira's eyes glimmered with wonder. She realized that humans could leave lasting impacts not just through strength or power but through empathy, observation, and intelligence. One human had faced the impossible and had emerged with trust, respect, and a bond that had seemed unimaginable to her people. He looked at Mira and smiled softly. "Humans endure," he said. "We face danger, think clearly, and act with patience. That's what allows us to survive and build connections, even with beings others fear." Mira nodded, feeling a deep sense of admiration. Humans were extraordinary in their resilience, cleverness, and capacity for understanding. The Garath, now fully relaxed, moved closer and nudged Ethan's side gently, almost as if affirming the bond they had formed. Mira watched silently, understanding that this was more than survival, it was legacy. Humans could create trust, inspire awe, and leave a mark that would last across worlds. Ethan stood and motioned for the Garath to follow him. Together they walked out of the jungle and into the open land beyond. Mira ran up beside him, keeping pace, and whispered again, "Humans are braver than we ever imagined." Her voice carried the mixture of admiration, respect, and newfound understanding of what humans were capable of. Ethan smiled faintly, looking at the creature that had once been feared by all and now walked peacefully beside him. "It's not just bravery," he said softly. "It's understanding, patience, and the ability to adapt. That's what humans do. We endure, we learn, and we leave a difference behind wherever we go." The other aliens who had been watching from a distance began to step closer, their eyes wide with amazement. Ethan's actions had shattered their assumptions about humanity. Humans were not fragile, reckless, or limited. They were resilient, intelligent, and capable of extraordinary feats that inspired trust and admiration. Mira could see it in their faces. Humans had earned respect not through fear, dominance, or aggression, but through courage combined with understanding. The Garath finally stopped near the edge of the open land, its massive body casting a long shadow in the fading light. Ethan knelt slightly and gently touched its snout again. The creature remained still, showing no signs of fear or hostility. Mira and the other aliens felt a mixture of awe and reverence. Humans could connect where others could not. They could endure, adapt, and act with patience, intelligence, and courage. Ethan finally turned to Mira, offering her a small, reassuring smile. "Remember this," he said softly. "Humans endure. We can survive the impossible, build trust where others see danger, and leave a lasting impact that goes beyond our own world." Myra's eyes sparkled with understanding. She had witnessed it firsthand, the ability of humans to face fear, act wisely, and inspire those around them. The sun began to set, casting golden light over the landscape. Ethan walked with the Garath beside him, the creature now calm, obedient in trust rather than fear. Mira ran alongside them, feeling a deep sense of respect and awe for the human who had accomplished what no one else could. Humans were extraordinary. They endured, adapted, and left marks across worlds, shaping perception through courage, intelligence, and patience. As they reached the outskirts of the jungle, Ethan paused and looked back at the dense trees. The Garath followed his gaze, standing silently beside him. Mira whispered one final time, almost reverently, "Humans, they endure. They leave a difference that lasts." Ethan smiled faintly, knowing that humans' ability to endure, act with courage, and build trust could change lives and worlds alike. And in that moment, both alien and human understood the lesson. True bravery is not just about surviving danger. It is about intelligence, patience, understanding, and the ability to connect with the unknown. Humans endure, and that enduring spirit leaves a legacy that no force, no matter how deadly, can erase.